Stretches of water between the islands and floating islands of Lake Chad. Not a very typical environment for nomads in search of pastures for their cattle. The life of nomads is based and organized following the rules dictated by their cattle and an extremely fragile environment. Cattle are nomads' life, day after day. They provide milk and meat, bones, skins and manure. They represent a resource of exchange for cereals and money to buy millet and clothing. They offer bullocks for ceremonies. At the same time, for cattle, men, women and children mean protection, care and being led towards good and sufficient pastures. All the traditional knowledge of nomads comes from cattle and from the interaction between themselves, cattle and nature, an interaction where all elements benefit the others. So nomadic groups adapt their number to the resources offered by the environment so as not to weigh too heavily on the habitat. Their constant mobility is functional, allowing pastures and bush to grow after they have left and before they are back again. But changed climatic conditions, new economic habits, and intensive cultivation in wet environments are putting dry areas and the very existence of the nomadic world at risk.
It's the first time we come to the lake in 15 years. This year, the wind fell very irregularly in space and in time, and there were no pasture nor cereals. So we chose the lake to feed our animals. We already knew the area. Once there were not so many farmers. In most parts around the lake, there were few cultivated fields, and where there was no cultivation, there was pasture.
Now there are more farmers around the lake eager to use the water to irrigate their fields. They invest in intensive agriculture, and then they are forced to obtain all they can out of the land to pay back their investments. So nomads and cattle are kept out of the fields, and fertilizers are preferred to natural manure. Changing their routes and traveling in new areas, and on islands, for this group of Pearl, like any other group, means encountering difficulties to deal with even ordinary problems. Medical and veterinarian assistance can be two of the most difficult to solve. But sometimes it's not a mere question of medicines. Cattle used by Pearl, selected to live and move in dry, arid areas, are just not resistant to the diseases and parasites of the islands of Lake Chad. Moving in new places means also meeting new people, setting new agreements with the traditional inhabitants to share their meager resources and poor services.
We came onto the islands, but we know that traditionally the land is owned by the island chief. We are all Chadian citizens, but we know that this land is owned by someone and that land by someone else. When we arrive, we raise some money, 10,000, 15,000 francs, some tea, some sugar, and we go to talk to the chiefs. Some understand immediately our point, others want more money. But in a way or another, we always find an agreement.
It seems that nomads are abandoned by a world that has no time to wait for them. Their constant movement cuts them off from any classic centralized plan of assistance, but is essential to sustain the ecosystem of dry areas. What they need is a legislation that would assist them, that would codify the agreements between different cattle raisers and farmers. What they need is that the modern technology of a world that seems to strangle them, combined with their traditional knowledge, could help them to live their life, following their own habits. Assistance in cross-breeding pearl cattle with local animals resistant to humid ecosystems. Mobile medical and veterinarian services. Schools, training, information on market prices and weather forecasts, all broadcast by radio.
First of all, we try to educate our children as our parents did. What to do when an animal is suffering, how to lead the animals, how to talk to a village chief. So they will be able to provide for the herd when we are no longer there. We can teach them, but then it's up to them to put it into practice, as they are the ones who will struggle for their life in this world.